Hey everybody, it's Eddie from Tokyo. This is your cryptocurrency update from Japan. I've got something very special for you. Yeah, nobody has found it yet, and you are going to see a full interview with Monica Long when she was in Singapore just a couple of days ago. It's very interesting, especially when you learn what the idea was to raise that capital that they recently did. But first, I want to talk about what Hugo Filion of Flare Networks is doing because, quite frankly, it is something that looks, well, incredible. Now, allow me to explain why I say that. There's a lot of chatter out there about a new product coming to market where you supposedly don't ever have to sell your crypto. And it's about borrowing against your crypto. Well, let me tell you that even if you over collateralize, even upwards to 200%, and you're diligent to monitor, is there ever zero risk? Currently, no. Crypto is gonna be crypto. A single big bearish wick, a flash crash, if you will, can still wipe you out. So Flare Networks is working on an insurance solution. I want you to keep an eye on that. But remember, do your own research because zero risk is currently impossible, even in perpetual loans. The no maturity, interest only if you borrow fiat or stablecoins against those appreciating assets. Yeah, refinancing via the gains. Safeguards still fail under extremes. Now, we all know the F Assets is live and it's bridged with XRP. And yeah, it's reaching some great numbers. You can always keep track of that on DeFi Llama. And in the last 24 hours, Hugo reminds everyone that Firelight is built to scale. And he cites the insurance market. Now, it's between 30 and 50 billion. And he has in mind to have the equivalent in XRP to give coverage. This product could be very impactful. Why? Because the circulating supply of XRP, the digital asset, the native token to the XRP ledger, is so large. We're never going to do it on burning minuscule transaction fees alone. Just a few days ago, there was a big fintech festival in Singapore, and Monica Long, the president of Ripple, was there. Standing off to her left there is Raul Advani. He is part of the Singapore team. He specializes in policy, a very nice guy. But you're going to really enjoy this 6 or 7 minute interview that she gave to the local media there in Singapore. And do tell me if you were lucky enough to go to the private party that they hosted the night before she spoke at the festival. I'm sure it was great. And yeah, I just want to hear if you were there. All right, let's get right to it, not waste any more time. And until next time, do take care. Sayonara for now. Bye-bye.
It's been a really big year for Ripple, very busy year. Some of the milestones, it's raised $500 million in funding, valuation now lifted to $40 billion. And interestingly, you said that Ripple did not need to raise funds, but what prompted you to bring in this cash?
So thank you so much for having me here. You're right. So we're in a really fortunate position where we have a really strong balance sheet to fund our organic and inorganic growth. We've done a number of acquisitions this year, but we saw it as an opportunity to bring some strategic shareholders onto the cap table. So Fortress and Citadel being two of the leading, funds from the traditional world. And we've done a number of tender offers over the past several years to return liquidity to our shareholders. And so through those, we were getting inbound interest from some of these strategic investors. And so we made the decision to bring them onto the cap table for long-term alignment.
At the same time, Ripple's RLUSD stablecoin surpassing $1 billion USD in market cap. This coming less than a year, after its launch. I mean, what are some of the key factors here driving that growth?
So we launched it just in the late December of last year, so it's been just under a year of RLUSD surpassing $1 billion, like you said. And really our motivation for launching it was that, our core business is offering payments on blockchain, and increasingly our clients were seeking to use US dollar stablecoins for efficient cross-border payments. So along with that business growth has come growth for RLUSD.
Would the U.S. Trump administration's pro-crypto stance, the Genius Act, have anything to do with kind of, boosting the appeal as well for RLUSD?
I think stablecoins and actually the digital asset industry at large have had a breakthrough year with institutional adoption. And I think that regulatory clarity coming out of the U.S. with that first the Genius Act, now we have the Clarity Act, working its way through legislation. I think that was a pretty big pivot point. And we could for sure we saw it within the U.S. market in terms of banks engaging with us on their digital asset strategies. But kind of to my pleasant surprise, I've noticed a pretty big momentum shift outside of the U.S. as well. Being here this week in Singapore for the FinTech Festival, I mean, we've had a number of meetings with banks all throughout the Southeast Asia region, and everyone's really leaning in.
We do have a Singapore dollar-backed stablecoin as well. Singapore has had stablecoin regulations launched years back, but I mean, it's a bit slower in this part of the world. Why do you think that's so?
Well, interestingly, I see Asia as a leader in digital asset adoption. I know this year Asia-Pac has been leading the overall global pack in terms of crypto transactions, with that growing 70% year on year. $1 billion has been funded into 80, 90 different companies just in the first half alone in this kind of line of work. And I think there's a recognition of the real need for this technology. And then you have this ecosystem, for example, in Singapore, between top global banks alongside fintechs and with a regulator, like you said, who kind of took an early position on licensing. But I'm also noticing other countries, following on and following Singapore's lead. Hong Kong, South Korea, Australia also coming forward with regulation.
How significant then you think this kind of mainstream acceptance and adoption is for stablecoins? I mean, the Bank for International Settlements has actually issued a strong warning about the risk of stablecoins, given that they are pegged to the USD and could have an impact, or rather be impacted by monetary policy. But what would your response be to that?
So, we think of stablecoins as a tool. It's a tool to use the blockchain for faster global payments, using a global payment rail that's 24/7 accessible. And that has real advantages over using the existing banking system, where you are faced with, days-long delays getting money from A to B, cutoff times for the weekends, that kind of thing. So there's real advantage. US dollar stablecoin is, today it's accepted more broadly as a mechanism or a tool to do those payments. And I think into the future, there's going to be a mixture of different forms of tokenized money. So we'll see other types of currencies issued as stablecoins. We've heard the term tokenized deposits. This just means banks tokenizing their customers' deposits and putting them onto a blockchain for efficient use. And speaking of BIS, many central bankers are really working on and thinking about central bank digital currency. So there will be a mixture of these different forms of tokenized money, but the key point to make is it's a more efficient tool for money movement.
There's also, the other side of the camp that talks about this sort of digital money being increasingly political, I suppose. When you talk about stablecoins, the dominant one is USD-backed stablecoins. And then in response, we're seeing the European Central Bank, even the PBOC kind of race to push out their own CBDCs, so that's a central bank digital currencies. Do you see them coexisting?
I do. And I think that there could be different use cases for these different types of tokenized assets. And by the way, in terms of how consumers and people use this infrastructure in the future, it might very well be more under the hood. So maybe it's through your banking application, and the benefit to you is just that your money gets to where it needs to go faster and cheaper. But yes, I think there will be kind of a mixture of different forms of tokenized money in the future.